Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who loves a bit of saxophone in his national anthems. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I mean, it got us off to a lively start. The Curacao national anthem had some saxophone getting in there lively.
It was the smoothest national anthem I've ever heard.
Yeah. And then things took a turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are here to talk about the USA's 1-0 win over Curacao in the Gold Cup quarter final.
Yep.
Big picture, not a great performance. We got the job done. Mm-hmm. I would argue there are moments that we can be positive about in terms of the positional play stuff working when we open Curacao up, like one of them being the goal. But there are also some things to be concerned about on the other side of the ball. And I want to tease it a little bit and we'll get into the detail of the things that we are genuinely concerned about in terms of the way Berhalter has the team set up and maybe even some tactical decisions made mid-game in this game. Fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we, leaving the Panama game, like in that review show, I think I kind of came around to a lot of your way of thinking about Greggy Ball, about kind of the patterns of play, about like movement off the ball. I think we did see more of that, or some of that at least tonight, and I think it did pay dividends.
I'd say we saw less than in previous games.
There's that,
right?
And I think that's where...
In the post-match press conference, Berhalter was talking about there wasn't enough movement in the second half. Speed of play wasn't fast enough, so he wasn't happy with how we moved the ball in the second half.
And I feel like, yes, and so I say that just to say that, yes, we're going to get into some of that later. I think you still remain a bit more optimistic about things or positive about things.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel a little bit more like if you're with, like, I don't know, like you've been promised, like, your partner's not going to cheat, and then you see them with, like, another person again, and you're like, well, you just said you weren't going to go hang out with people, and now I don't know what to think of this. Yes.
I mean, my big picture...
I've been watching HBO's Succession, and I trust no one anymore.
That show will make you paranoid.
It will.
But it is excellent, right?
Yes.
I really like it.
It is.
I don't think this is positivity or optimism or any of that stuff. It's more just... It's not such a big deal that there's a bad performance in the quarterfinal. You know what I mean? You get through the quarterfinal, you win 1-0, you get to the next round. In the long run, it's kind of okay. Not every game can be a blowout. And I also think there's an element of underestimating Curacao, not from Berhalter's standpoint, but maybe from the fan base standpoint. Because we were ready to underestimate them. Yeah. Then we watched some Curacao and we looked at where the players played. It's Eredivisie, Premier League, USL Championship.
Yep.
So it's a mix, but there were some high-level players. And I think maybe you put it in that context, it's not so bad to only beat Curacao 1-0. But I think because it's a nation a lot of people haven't heard of, they think, we should smash this team 5-0.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I take one issue with what you said, which is I do kind of think the U.S. national team did overlook them a little bit and maybe did underestimate them and thought, oh, they'll be a little bit nervous, they'll kind of go long, they'll try to be direct, they'll bunker. I don't think we saw a lot of that from Curacao, and I think the U.S. expected them to play that way, and when they didn't, kind of struggled to adapt.
One big way to look at this game is Curacao play a very Dutch-style 4-3-3, building out of the back, refusing to go long. They kind of play the soccer Berhalter wants to play. It's it was almost a mirror image of two teams playing very similar styles, and I think that might be one of the keys is we thought we could force them to go long and they steadfastly refused and they played out of the back, which is credit to them and lack of credit to us for not being able to force them to go long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spurs could have done it.
They could have.
That's one of the Pochettino goals, right? Is force the team long. I think he could have forced Curacao long.
So we want to talk more about maybe why the United States wasn't able to do that, about what Curacao were able to do as a result. But do we want to start maybe on a little bit more optimistic note since we do get the lead relatively early in this game?
Yeah, not least because chronologically this did go well to begin with and then got progressively less impressive, right?
Yes.
And so there's the Pulisic dribble to start the game where he drives at people and opens them up. And he has that shot, and maybe if he'd been a little less selfish and passed, Boyd was open a couple of times, right? So there's really a chance that Pulisic could have opened this game up in really, really early on.
Yeah, I think we saw from Pulisic and from Tyler Boyd on a couple of occasions in this game a willingness to try to kill the game as effectively and early as possible.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, and I don't really fault Pulisic for that one. I would have liked to see him play in Tyler Boyd maybe a little bit like earlier than even we thought he could have.
There were two opportunities, right? There was one where he could have played it like to the inside of the defender to Boyd on the outside. And there's another one right before he shot. Everybody converged on Pulisic. And that was the moment where Boyd was wide open. Would have been one-on-one with the keeper at a not too wide angle.
Right.
He absolutely should have passed it.
But it's also the case that Pulisic starts this move by receiving the ball maybe 15 yards inside his own half and dribbles that entire length of the field to get the shot off. So with that in mind, there's an element of like he's beaten a bunch of players already. Maybe he's just feeling himself and he wants to have that go.
He's got the armband. It's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm sure the family were there.
And he has another one later on in the second half where he has the shot that goes just wide. And it's another one where maybe he could have looked to pass. Maybe he could have found like Weston McKennie or even Paul Arriola with a reverse ball. But I think he wants to kill the game. He wants to get that second goal.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's even necessarily about him. Maybe that's me giving him the credit because I like Christian Pulisic, but I genuinely...
What do you mean it's not just like...
I don't think it's just like I'm the best.
I'm all selfish, I want to look good.
I think it's just sort of like I have an opportunity to score. I am one of the people who is likely to score on this team, so I'm going to take this chance.
So it's not Neymar, it's more Messi.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I think is a good way to
Christian Pulisic is Lionel Messi, yes.
And then the 25th minute goal from Weston McKennie. I think not only is the Pulisic cross is great, the way Pulisic beats the defender is great. Maybe we'll get into the details of that. The McKennie finish is really good. But the build-up play, there's like 14 passes in the build-up to this. This is Greggy ball when it's working, is this goal.
Yeah, it's Aaron Long, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Jossie Zardes, Weston McKennie, Jossie Zardes again, Christian Pulisic. Oh, Tim Ream is in there too. Yeah, I mean, you've got...
Doesn't it even start with Zach Steffen?
Oh, excuse me. That was even the wrong passing sequence. That was the one in the 4th minute. There's one even more that's even lengthier.
Because this one starts with
Zach Steffen,
don't they try and like David Beckham or Wayne Rooney is a better recent example for DC United, try and lob it over Zach Steffen, but he catches it. And what I really like is he immediately rolls it out and off we go. Right? And there's 14 passes and then got balls in the back of the net.
And it is like it's a 70-yard shot because the United States has turned over possession. We should add very cheaply. But then it's also the case then that Aaron Long has sprinted back a good 30 yards. And it's not like he's defending somebody. It's a shot in the air. He sprinted back to restart the play. So I think it shows you the intent there because Aaron Long gets it. They move the ball around. I actually tracked it because I wanted to see if it was one of those where everybody touched the ball. They did not, unfortunately.
It involved Zardes coming deep and laying it back to a defender. I'm guessing Aaron Long.
You are correct, yes.
Yeah. But the key moment in this, the most Greggy ball, positional play element of this whole move that leads up to the goal is the Arriola-Pulisic combo down the left wing.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. Because, I mean, it is, like, Zardes dropping in is a thing that we've keyed on as a key part of the positional play, but Zardes drops it back to Aaron Long spreads it to Tim Ream, and as soon as it goes to Tim Ream, like, two things happen. Christian Pulisic, who had also already come central and kind of dropped inside, immediately starts running to essentially the space that Paul Arriola vacates because Paul Arriola goes to the touchline to open up for Tim Ream, pulls a defender with him, but then Christian Pulisic's defender just a little lackadaisical tracking him.
He gets the run on him, basically, right?
And now that ball into the channel, into space is wide open.
And the thing that's really important, though, is if Arriola hadn't gone wide, then Pulisic could have run into this place. He's given, is it Shemaine Martina? He's got like a yard's head start on him, but he'd be running into another defender ready to catch him, right? So Arriola opening up the channel is the absolute Greggy ball moment.
And I think, and I just want to like double down here to say, because I can understand how if you're kind of new to it, it sounds like basically we're saying like one player moved back and then another player ran forward and then there was a long ball in. And that is sort of the case. But if you watch it again, you'll see it's much more automatic that like as one goes, one moves. And it's definitely playing off of each other with an eye towards finding areas of space that they have aimed to find.
And it's pre-planned, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the whole thing of it is pre-planned,
Exactly.
And another thing that I haven't heard Bale to talk about, but I've read a lot in terms of good descriptions of the basics of positional play is one of the goals is, as well as exploiting space and overloads and all that, one of the goals is to match up your quality players 1v1 so that they can make some magic happen. And I think that's a fair description of what Pulisic does to Shemaine Martina after Martina catches him up.
Yes, I would agree with that because I also think that part of Curaçao's plan was to not let Christian Pulisic get into 1v1 situations. Routinely, especially in the first like 15 minutes, there were two defenders on him and they were very physical with him. I think they did not want this exact scenario to happen.
Right,
because
so it's an achievement for us to get to this moment, right?
Because what happens is he beats you one-on-one and plays a perfect cross in, and that is exactly what Christian Pulisic does here.
That certainly can happen. How does he beat Martina?
It's a double step over, but I think what stands out to me the most here is like the intentionality of the double step over because he basically steps over with his right foot, steps over with his left foot, and then takes it with the outside of his right foot to kind of go back away from goal, but then to be able to put the diagonal cross into the box. And the reason why that stands out to me is because if you lead with the left and then you do a double step over, so now you've stepped over with the right, you then naturally have to take it with your left, so you're just taking it to the touchline, and then you're having to kind of drive it back across and hope. Whereas this one to me feels like I'm trying to get a little bit of space so that I can then cross the ball in. So I want to like feint with my right, go with my left, cut back with the right, and that really does end up confusing the defender. Yeah. And so just that moment of like knowing which way to lead with to do a fairly complicated move.
I'll be honest, I didn't even see it
Yeah.
on the first couple of viewings. You had to point it out, and then I didn't watch it in slow-mo, but
I think like the third replay shows it.
I spotted it after you pointed it out, because he really does do it very quickly, right? It's like step over, step over. It's like that fast.
But that's what it takes.
Blurry legs Pulisic.
Yeah, because Jermaine Martinez's legs, you can see like sort of come together because he's basically brought them together. He's not quite sure which way to go, but that's exactly what Pulisic is trying to set him up for, because then that delays the response, and that's why he is able to get a little bit of space to cross that ball.
It's just enough space to cross it.
Yeah.
And here's my argument. Perfect cross.
Yeah.
Perfect cross, because Lachman was it Bakuna? I can't remember. Is marking Weston McKennie.
Lashman. Yeah.
It's Lashman. And the ball goes just over Lashman, but onto McKennie's head. So it is absolutely perfectly weighted.
And
Lashman's not short. He's a big centre back.
Yeah, and when I add there, it's perfect, especially because you're absolutely right that he could have won that ball if it's hit a little bit lower or if it's hit a little bit softer. But it's also not. It's leading Weston McKennie. It's not as though Weston McKennie is standing at the back post with a hand in the air.
Yeah.
Weston McKennie himself has to adjust his run and kind of backpedal to be able to head that ball in, which is not to say that Pulisic mishits the ball or overhits it and then Weston McKennie, I mean, he does well to react to it, but it's more so that Pulisic puts it in the only spot he can put that ball where it's going to be a clean header that's going to cause problems.
It's a spot where Lashman can't get it, right?
Exactly.
And where the goalkeeper can't get it. That's why it's a perfect cross from Christian Pulisic.
It is.
Does McKennie sort of is just tracked by Lashman into the box and maybe just takes a couple steps away to lose him. But I honestly think the credit more goes to Pulisic's cross than to McKennie's run. It's not some special fake near post, go far post. There's no disguise on what McKennie's doing.
No, I think that's why it stands out all the more is because it's not. I did expect to see some sort of like check away, check two, darting run that Weston McKennie makes, and really it's just like, he's crossed it to the back corner. I guess I better backpedal a little bit, and then I'll head it in, and we'll have a choreographed celebration that we practiced in our hotel room.
That made my heart happy because I've also seen when Pulisic first arrived in camp.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Instagram video of McKennie making him dance?
That's right.
So he does. It's a similar style dance to the celebration, right?
Yeah. All right, I like it.
It's worth knowing for people, even though they've played on different
more
teams.
patterns to play. There you go.
Yeah, it's synchronized. So even though they've played on Dortmund and on Schalke, obviously that's in the same city. These guys have spent a lot of time together, right?
Yes.
It's kind of great to see two friends on the same team making things happen.
Yes, that was one of the few great things to see this evening. Yes, and I do think Berhalter. We watched the whole the post-match press conference, which was brief, or brief in like kind of a knockout round competition. You might expect it to be a little bit longer. And he definitely
terse is the word I would use.
Yeah, he definitely seemed pretty defensive. Sometimes justifiably so, sometimes
arms
not.
Folded?
Yes.
Arms folded for half the press conference.
Some death stares.
Yeah.
And
after the first Zardes question, arms got folded and never got unfolded.
Nope. But he made the point that like there were chances where the United States kind of could have put the game away in this first half. Yeah. And I do agree. And and I say all that to say that whole preamble was meant to be more of an explanation as to why I'm about to say that like if they take a couple more of those chances, if Pulisic finishes the one in the fourth minute, if Michael Bradley finishes the one near the end of the first half, then it's 3-0, and it's a very different narrative because even if the United States did sit off and did kind of struggle with some of their shape overall, it still ends up as a 3-0 win. But because those chances aren't taken quite cleanly, because they don't go in the net, it changes very much the narrative and the perspective on this game.
The one I would have liked to see go in, I don't disagree at all, the one I would have liked to see go in is the Bradley strike from the top of the box. Is this the 36th minute? Are my notes correct?
Yes.
Quite a nice long build-up, and then Bradley arrives late, and it's a finish I see you do on Sundays a lot, and I really like it. You arrive late and just instep it inside like one of the posts, and it's just wide of the post, right?
Yep.
So, I mean,
mine aren't, but yes.
They should have got you in there instead.
No.
But I would like to talk about while we're focusing on the positives. Don't worry, folks. If you came here for negativity, we'll get to it like after the ad break in the second half.
It's a coming.
The build-up to this, I think, is really good. I think the build-up in the 36 minute chance is a good example of Berhalter ball, positional play, Greggy ball, really working once again, and nearly creates the second goal.
It does. And I would also say it's a good example of what Tyler Boyd brings to the table because it feels like the narrative on this one has been that he had his worst game for the U.S. national team so far.
I think that's true, but it's up against some stiff competition. You know what I mean? As in, they've all been good performances
I feel
so
like
far.
he had one, maybe in one of the friendlies before the tournament began, that we were sort of like, huh. Like in like the first game, doesn't he score? And then after that, he struggles a little bit.
I can't remember the
Either way,
technology.
I'm sure there were reasons why people felt that way. Maybe if you were there, you saw his positioning be off a little bit because you have a different perspective. But to me, like this sequence is a great example of what he brings because it starts with him out on the right wing and when he gets the ball, and it's a driven ball to him from Weston McKennie central out to the touchline, which he brings down with his chest under pressure. pressure, but then I think proceeds to combine and get passes and drop in and then stretch the defense and cause problems. And he's really heavily involved all over the place in this sequence. And I think that is what he's bringing to the table. It's not just being wide and being pacey, but it's also his ability to kind of control and find smart passes and make smart passes, especially under pressure.
If we're talking about Greggy Ball, I keep repeating it. We're talking about possession play. I keep framing it in this way. He's the one that causes overloads like 2 or 3 times in this sequence, right? And because I think Nick Lima is out wide on the right, so that job is being done. He's then free to pop up in various places, and this is the least predictable the US looked was this move, because it wasn't everybody in their position and just moving 5 yards here or there. Suddenly Boyd was like just behind Zardes, or he was over on the left, or he was just popping up everywhere. And I think that's hard when you're Curacao then to deal with that, right? Because you don't just like, okay, I've got my marks, we've got our shape. Suddenly this guy's popping up everywhere. And that's how this chance ends up getting created for Michael Bradley, right? I don't remember how the ball gets back to Bradley.
It's Pulisic cutback.
It's Pulisic cutback in the end, right? But but Boyd just pops up multiple times in the build-up.
He does. I also, we had a tweet from a friend of mine, hi Pete, who asked about like, why do we no longer see Nick Lima as that central midfielder anymore? Why doesn't he become a holding midfielder? And I think one of the things that I enjoyed in our conversation after the Panama game was the idea that like it doesn't always have to be the same person filling a certain spot.
Yeah.
As long as other people are doing it. And this game was another good example of, as you said, Nick Lima bombing forward. So we had the kind of back three in Zimmerman, Long, and Ream. They spread out. And then I felt like what I saw was Weston McKennie actually staying deeper a lot of the time. So then that was almost the like second number 6 / sort of number 8 with Michael Bradley.
Did you see the shot of Josh Wolf holding the tactics clipboard with the mags? Oh, no, you did. Sorry, because we looked at it, right? Listeners may have
I was
seen
in the
it.
room with you.
Sorry,
yes.
Listeners may have seen it briefly, but obviously because we're who we are, big nerds, we went back and paused it and took a good look at what it was. And it was the shape that Bear Holders talk about, 3-2-2-3. Right? That's ultimately the shape they want to get to. And that shape can be Nick Lima being part of that first wave of 2 alongside Bradley, or it can be McKennie being deeper, and then other people are beyond, right? So 3-2-2-3 is always the attacking shape they end up with. And if you can go back, if you DVR the game, if you can go back and look at it, you can also see the little variations within the 3-2-2-3, right? You'll see Boyd tucked in a little more. You'll see Pulisic pushed over toward Areola. They've actually almost got a Pulisic Areola overload, like it's 2v1 down the US left. Like just very clear evidence that that's part of the plan.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the eventual shape is 3-2-2-3.
It is. And it stays that way for at least the first half. It changes a little bit in the second half. We can talk about that in a second, but first, should we talk about today's sponsor?
Yeah, today's show is sponsored by our old friends at SeatGeek. They're not old. They're a young, dynamic company, but we've known them a long time.
We have. They've been with us for quite some time, right? They've been helping us find tickets to, I think, things going back to the Copa America Centenario,
yes,
I think.
Absolutely.
So thanks, SeatGeek, for sticking around.
And they have a new initiative. They want you to know that almost half of all MLS fans are female. That's not just a fact. It's something worth celebrating, which means it also is a fact, right?
This
when
is
it's
true.
not just a fact, it actually is a fact.
Yes, I think. That sounds logical. It's the summer of soccer, and as we support the women on the field in France, SeatGeek and Major League Soccer are teaming up to showcase the female fans at home who've made this sport all that it is.
And if you want to learn more about this collaboration and to see the female fans of MLS showing their true colours, check out WeFan, WEFAN, .SeatGeek, SEATGEEK, correct? .com. Yeah, WeFan.SeatGeek.
You have the copy in front of you.
I know, I never trust myself. Every time I spell something out, it feels wrong, and I'm convinced I've made a mistake.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm glad you were here to double check me.
Did you spell the .com?
The dot is like a tiny circle. COM.
Okay.
WeFan.SeatGeek.com. The link will be in the show notes, and essentially a whole sort of special report and research into female fans of Major League Soccer.
There you go. And if you want to go see some soccer in person, you can get $10 off your first purchase with SeatGeek, the official ticketing partner of Major League Soccer.
We don't often mention that, right? They are the official ticketing partner of Major League Soccer.
They are indeed. So they are, for example, have tickets already available for MLS All-Star in Orlando. You and I are thinking we'll be there. Hopefully we'll be there. We should be there.
Planning to be there.
Planning to be there.
Yeah.
Mike could be there.
There's a couple of logistical things between Floyd Fest and chemo that I've got to figure out, but I'm hoping to get it done. Yeah.
I think people are now scratching their heads about Floyd Fest.
Yeah.
We'll leave that to them.
Look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Also, there are tickets available for the semifinal in Nashville, the United States versus Jamaica, on July 3rd, I believe it is.
Oh, yeah, because we won this quarterfinal.
There you go. That's how it works. So if you wanted to get tickets to either of those or any other event, not just sports, but concert, theater, comedy, whatever you want, just download the app and enter promo code TSS today. That's TSS. Do you want to spell that out too, Daryl?
It's the letter T, the letter S, and the letter S.
There it is. For $10
I prefer
off.
to say it.
I don't. Spell it again.
TSS.
For $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, a ticket for every fan.
Ooh, that's a new tagline.
It is.
Oh, right. Very nice, SeatGeek. A ticket for every fan. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's Total Soccer show.
Indeed.
Now we get sad?
Now we get sad. Yes.
So we mentioned at the top of the show that we saw elements of positional play. We saw elements of pulling Curacao out in the first half especially, and it was enough to get us one goal, maybe a couple more if the finishing had been slightly better.
Yeah.
But we also saw stuff that we were not happy about. And my biggest thing that I wasn't happy about in this game is the US's defensive setup.
Yep.
I thought it was kind of weak and ineffective.
I agree 1,000% instead of my usual 100%.
Yeah.
Just because, and we talked about this
Timmy
a little
Chandler.
bit.
You and Timmy Chandler go for 1,000%. He was 1,000% committed to the US men's national team. Yeah.
Then no, not that much, because then you go, I feel like he went full circle and became uncommitted by going too far.
I feel like almost if you use a fake number, it's obvious that you're not serious.
Yeah, that could be. But I think, and we talked about this just before we started recording, but like what was frustrating to me, as I've said, there's a lot of like hypotheticals that ended up not being, but there's another, like in like some other multiverse where the United States did finish those two chances, the other two chances we talked about. So it's 3-0 at halftime, and then they kind of execute a coherent and consistent defensive game plan.
Yeah.
Curacao can't really do anything, and even if it ends up 3-0 and they don't create, and the U.S. doesn't score any more goals or create any more chances, it's sort of a like, yeah, it's a routine win, 3-0. They didn't really do it in the second half, but the United States didn't let them do anything. So overall, it's a good result. But because they didn't take those chances, it finishes 1-0, and because, to your point, how sort of inconsistent the United States looked in their defense, especially in the second half, it has me feeling slightly more concerned than I expected to be.
Should we take this half by half then?
Sure.
In the first half, the Curacao plan was we'll play out of the back. Our goalkeeper Room is like great with his feet. He gives the ball to Martina or Lachman, and then they have. We thought it would be Bakuna, right? We thought he would be the go-to pivot guy. It was Shemaine Martina, number 15, who's sort of does the job that Bradley does for us, because we're essentially doing the same thing here, right? A 4-3-3. They look to play through him, right? What the US does is we go into our 4-4-2. We have Pulisic and Zardes are the front two in the defensive shape. They sort of block off the angles of the centre backs theoretically, and then we have usually Bradley, occasionally McKennie, come and mark Shemaine Martina, number 15, to prevent that ball going to him, right? Which kind of makes sense, but it still leaves the fullbacks kind of free.
It
right?
does.
So Curacao are able to eventually play out of this a few times.
Yes. Are we still in the first half?
Yes, in the first half. And actually, not so much are they able to play it because Bradley is blocking off that pass to Martina. But what does happen is whenever they break us, whenever they manage to break through eventually, because Bradley is so high, suddenly we're in trouble. Like, do you remember when Bakuna sort of dribbles down the field?
Oh, I remember that because it's actually Weston McKennie who loses him, and that's what I was going to say. Is I think the fullbacks being open is more of a product of the second half. I think the issue that for Greg Berhalter, and I think why he made some adjustments at halftime, is that what you did have, to your point, you had Bradley stepping forward to get on Shemaine Martina, but I think a lot of times Weston McKennie also went forward, and I think the wingers also went forward, and so you had a lot of like pressure high up the field. But if on the occasion that Curacao were able to find a way through, then suddenly they had 60 yards of counterattack. And so that one that you're mentioning was in like the 41st minute, I think, and it's McKennie. He just steps, gets beat by Bakuna to 1-2, and then he's now 10 yards behind and can never catch up, and no one else can because the United States has committed numbers further forward.
And I think from that they win a corner kick, and then that doesn't go well, but the second corner kick, there's a Lachman header that's just over the bar, so that could have resulted in a goal.
Absolutely.
So my guess is that essentially the US did a bad job of having enough numbers back when Curacao did break through us, and we got nervous about that and then went more defensive in the second half.
Yes.
Yeah?
And this is where I get even more confused because, yes, I think they absolutely did that. I think what the adjustment was at halftime is, look, we don't want to let Curacao have any opportunities to play through the middle to catch us sort of wide open or too stretched. So I think he has Michael Bradley and Weston McKennie sit deeper, which makes sense because now there's like more defensive presence, especially in the middle.
Yeah.
But what's really confusing to me is that he doesn't have Jesse Zardes and Christian Pulisic also drop in. And so instead, what it leaves is a 3v2 against the United States every single time.
So what they're trying to do is have Zardes and Pulisic stand between Martina and Lachman, the two centre-backs, and Shemaine Martina, the defensive midfielder, and they're trying to split the difference between essentially that triangle. But you're literally playing a game of 3v2, right? This is like a practice game that you would have the Curacao team play to like work on their possession, right? You outnumber we are literally outnumbered at that point in the field, and they could always eventually find Martina.
Yeah.
Always eventually.
And now this is where I'm going to change the that's good, that's bad game to the I get what you're doing, but that's bad.
Okay.
Because I think the United States then were sort of in this mindset of like, fine, we're up 1-0. If you all want to possess slowly out of the back and work it around, go ahead.
Yeah.
And we will sit off. The thing is, if you're going to do that, I get that approach. You've got to have the discipline to back it up and to execute it. And I think, yes, like Greg Berhalter spotlighted Room, the goalkeeper, as having great feet.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. But I think the other thing he had, as did the two center backs, was patience. And they were happy to keep the ball, even when they're losing, even in the 60th or 65th or 70th minute.
Refused to go long. Absolutely refused to go long.
But eventually, instead of the United States just being like, okay, fine, just keep cycling it around, eventually somebody steps forward and somebody else steps forward. And that's where I say in the second half, like, there's the one to start the second half inside the first minute that like the United States do force them back, and then you have Christian Pulisic comes over and like, or Tyler Boyd blocks off the right side, then it goes to the right back, and Paul Arriola comes running forward, and it goes back to the goalkeeper, and Arriola pursues, and then it's just a chipped ball over, and it finds the right back for Curacao, and now they're away down that channel, and it felt like the United States had this goal of, fine, we'll sit back and let you have the ball, thinking that eventually it would force Curacao into going long, and instead they just kept waiting, and the United States bit.
I mean, they were technically really good, Curacao, in terms of finding space and breaking.
You mean that like technically as in their technical ability, right?
Yes.
Not they were technically good.
Yeah, I don't mean
cool.
I don't mean it as like
technically they were good.
A pejorative qualifier.
I got you. Okay, cool.
Their technique was good.
I got you. There we go.
Technique
That threw
was
me
good.
for a minute. I was like, yeah, they were just good, dude.
It wasn't well phrased. It wasn't. What can I say? People are underperforming tonight, but we'll still get through to the semis.
If it helps, not the worst performance on the evening.
So my other problem with this defensive setup is, and I've thought this the whole time, every time we've defended, but we just haven't had to do that much defending, right?
Yep.
This is the first time we've had to do a bit of serious defending. When we get, say, Pulisic and Zardes as the front two, it just looks like there's no actual plan to win the ball back. It's more like, we'll be kind of in the way, and you've got to try and play through us. But you compare it to watching, like, this is a tough comparison, but you compare it to watching Klopp's Liverpool, Pochettino's Spurs. Those front two are taking positions that are forcing the opposition into a certain way. Like, so if in the ideal world, it would be Pulisic would cut off the angle, so the only ball available was maybe back to the other centre back, and Zardes would already be on that centre back. Or if the angle is out to the right back, then Paul Arriola would already be there, ready to pounce on that right back. It never felt like any sort of trap was set, and we were pressuring them in a way that put them in uncomfortable situations. It was almost just like we let them be comfortable. They were put in comfortable situations.
Yes, which is so confusing, and this is why like I kept not quite getting what the United States was trying to do, especially in the second half, because to your point, we would see this like the moment when like say Lachman plays it to Cuco Martina, the two center backs, and you would see like Gyasi Zardes, okay, now he stepped in between those two center backs, so that pass isn't on. Pulisic is blocking off Shemaine Martina, so now they can't play through there, so they play it to the right back. And then, like, Gyasi Zardes would drop back and Pulisic would drop back, and then the ball would just go back to the other center back, and it would just keep kind of moving. And it never felt like they were cutting off options to force Curacao back and back and back, and then eventually they go long. I think that was the idea, but they never actually executed that final half that forced the long ball.
Because the real thing is, eventually, instead of going long, they would eventually find a way through. And all we've done is sort of stuck our finger in the dam for a while, and then eventually the dam breaks. Right?
Because also, to go back to it, because eventually also then the United States do finally get tired of that, like, okay, they've just recycled it and recycled it and recycled it. We're going to send another runner. We're going to send another runner.
Yeah, like Arriola would break late on the right back. He's 20 yards from him, and you don't go charging at him like a madman.
And so then you might think, yes, he would. And the problem there is, like, then you might think, well, okay, fine. Now they've committed numbers. It should be the case that now the United States has kind of blocked everything off. You've got this blockade. There's no way to play through, except that because it felt like okay, now I guess I'll go. Okay, now I guess I'll go. It wasn't a planned, coordinated system. And so Curacao kept finding space because the United States kept leaving space.
Oy. So
rant complete for now.
Wouldn't it have been better then if instead of having Pulisic and Zardes stand high but not be useful, if we actually if we're going to defend, just actually defend. Like we'll sit back in a 4-4-2, let them come at us, and then we could maybe hit them in transition. Right? Then you could hit them with Boyd and Pulisic, or later Morris and Pulisic and Arriola in transition. We never had good transition moments, except for the one time Arriola tackled someone.
Yes.
That's it, right?
And
crossed it to Zardes, and Zardes put it over the bar.
In
the 70-something minute.
We can talk about Zardes Zardes in a second because I have thoughts. But yes, I mean, that's the one time it comes off. And even then, the frustrating thing is that's Curacao forcing a pass. I think that's when they start to get a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But even then, that wasn't the United States necessarily doing the right thing and finally like pulling off a coordinated press. I mean no disrespect, because Paul Arriola wins the ball, controls it, has a 1-2, has a great cross into the box. It's great work from him. But it's not like it's a product of what the U.S. was doing. It's more so a mistake from Curacao that the United States was able to almost capitalize upon.
I think we've put enough evidence out that this 4-4-2 defensive shape didn't work in this game, or at least wasn't impressive enough to try and win the ball back in this game, or wasn't impressive enough to force them long, right? You could also argue that in the end it worked, so maybe we're okay.
What do you mean?
That they didn't score. They didn't have any high quality scoring opportunities. So maybe we can say that this worked.
I mean, no.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think so, because I don't think that was a product of the United States getting it right. Again, I honestly think if Curacao had one better attacking player, one better striker who was a bit more calm in front of goal.
Yeah, Arias was good at like coming deep and like connecting play and all that sort of stuff, but he didn't have... You know, we talked about that moment of magic where you get your quality player matched up, and Pulisic did that. I don't think they quite had that in the box.
You said it earlier that like it was a very similar style and approach from Curacao that we've seen from the United States, and I think that extends to their presence in front of goal. That I think there were moments when if they slow it down...
Arias the Curacao Zardes?
A little bit. If he slowed it down and maybe had a better touch on a couple occasions, or maybe tried to look for a pass on a couple of occasions, rather than, I mean, especially in the final 15, I think anytime they got near the goal, it seemed like they were looking to shoot as opposed to continue to pass. I think if we come up against a team that is a slightly better attacker or a couple attackers, they find a way through.
They have that quick 1-2 in the box. Okay.
I think so.
Okay, so we've definitely made the case that the 4-4-2 doesn't work. Here's where I am with it. I am not concerned about the us with the ball. Because I think long term this is a thing we're working on, and I see it getting better game by game. Maybe today's like a little bit of regression from the previous 3 games, but it was good enough to open space and make a chance. Long term, I'm still not necessarily confident, but willing to see out the Berhalter experiment of us having the ball and positional play and opening people up. But long term, I'm genuinely concerned about the way we defend.
Okay.
Right, so that's my position right now.
All right.
I really want to see some improvement, or at least maybe a better plan for how we defend in the 4-4-2.
I think that's it for me, is that a lot of times when we go back and rewatch, we're like, oh, okay, this is what they did. And it's really, really comforting when we can figure out the narrative of like, okay, this was a problem in the first half. He adjusted this, but that led to this problem, so then they adjusted here. And you can see the flow. Here, I can understand why they dropped McKennie and Bradley deeper. That makes sense to me. But then why not have everybody else do it? It felt like almost as though he like ran out of time at halftime and like didn't quite get to say, hey, by the way, you guys dropped 2. Like,
you're not really saying that's what happened.
No, I'm not saying that's what happened. But it was that confusing to me. And I'm going to keep harping on it. Like, to me, it goes back to, I think that they did not understand what Curacao were going to do. I think they thought they were going to bunker, to the extent that, like, in his defensive press conference, Greg Berhalter said, like, well, you know, Curacao were bunkered and they made it really difficult to find a way through. And I contrast that with moments, even in the first half, when you Daryl, were like, man, they're really going at us. Like, they're really stretched out. Like, they're trying to put us under pressure. Like, they weren't bunkered. And so it seemed to me like there was this expectation that, oh, we know they'll go long, so just sit back. And when they didn't, it was more of a like, yeah, well, eventually they're going to go long, rather than like, oh, they're not going long, we should change.
They took a little while to solve the Rubik's Cube, but they would do it every time.
Yes, exactly.
They never threw it across the room.
Exactly. And again,
which is what I do.
It goes to the patience. It goes to the kind of calmness on the ball that I think wasn't expected.
Okay.
The other problem I think the United States had in the second half is, I feel harsh, but it's Gyasi Zardes. I do think that was an issue.
Let's get into some individual player sort of analysis then.
I don't even know why I hesitate, because I think just to say that, like, when you're saying that like the U.S. dropped off and kind of lost their rhythm, it's tough to isolate one player. But the thing that I noticed a couple different times, once in the first half, but definitely more so in the second half, was a hesitation from players, Michael Bradley twice, to play the ball into the feet of Gyasi Zardes under pressure in traffic.
We did say in the preview that we noticed Cuca Martina, their captain, probably their best player, maybe Bacuna, but probably the best player, would often track the centre forward and happily go with them wherever they went and then scurry back into position. He did a perfect job of that on Zardes. So every time Bradley looked for Zardes, Martina was at his back. And I think that was enough to maybe Bradley think, I'm not sure Zardes can handle this pass.
Yeah, because if you combine it with what we've already talked about from the first half of the United States losing the ball, having too many numbers converted forward, and now you're giving a counterattack where it's just one player dribbling for 50 yards, if you've been told, don't give that up, we don't want them dribbling at us like that anymore. If they're going to counterattack, we want them wide and after kind of a spell of possession. If you see Gyasi Zardes there with a player on his back, I think you don't make that pass because I think there's a fear that maybe he takes a heavy touch, they win that ball, and now you have committed numbers forward and you've lost the ball in a vulnerable spot, so that ball ends up not getting played.
I'd also argue that he's not screaming for it.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen better strikers, better hold-up strikers who have a defender in their back and they just don't care because they are like they're willing to like throw a little elbow, push back on that guy, create a bit of separation with like a bump backwards and a bounce forwards, and just demand for the ball. And they just have the confidence that doesn't matter if this ball's coming into me, I'm protecting it, and then I'm going to do something with it. And you never got that aura or that sort of vibe from Gyasi Zardes that I don't care, give it to me, I can handle it.
Right, and you need that, but you also need it more so just because you want your forward to have that mentality, but because go back to the chances we talked about in the 4th minute, the one that Pulisic almost scores off his foot, off his knee, and then gets saved.
Yeah.
Zardes drops in and combines, and it's a different pattern. It doesn't go wide, but he's involved. For the goal, as we talked about, he drops in, he pulls Martina out.
Yeah.
Martina then has to get back in line.
He's able to get back in the back four, right?
He does, but both of those moments are Gyasi Zardes moving, the ball being kind of fired into his feet, and him being able to control it, more or less.
Yeah.
But when you stop having that appears to be a key part of what the United States are trying to do offensively. And if now you're removing that from the equation of him kind of disrupting what Curacao are trying to do, you disrupt your own attack as a result.
I want to double down on you saying that's a key part, because that's literally, if you can get the centre-backs out of position, that's huge. That's like the strongest point of the castle. And if you can find a gap there, you should go through it.
Yes. You should. And they did not. Or could not, rather, the United States. And
so why... Sorry, if you got more to say.
Not about that. More about Zardes.
I was going to ask, why no Josie Altidore? And we got the answer in the Greg Berhalter press conference, right?
We got an answer.
We got an answer. He essentially said...
Didn't think Josie was the best option in a transition game is why they didn't bring him off the bench. He didn't really answer why Josie didn't start. I think he left that one as sort of like, well, Josie's been doing some stuff. Like, it was a very...
I think we can predict that Altidore isn't 100% fit based on the fact that Altidore didn't start, right? I'm pretty sure. Was there a quote about that, or have I imagined that?
I can't remember.
Okay, let's forget I said that then.
That's fine. But that was his explanation for, I think the implication was we planned to bring him on, but it turned into a transition game.
Because we thought we'd be more on the front foot and possessing the ball, but instead, because we're in transition, like, I guess the transition meaning like someone who's just quicker to get in behind, I would imagine.
Guess.
Is Zardes faster than Altidore? Maybe he is.
Maybe not right now. I mean, maybe he is right now, at least.
If Altidore's not fully fit,
exactly.
We're getting towards the point where there's only two. There's only 2 games left, right? If third place playoff or final. I mean,
I guess.
Unless they've counted it, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder, should Josie have been on this roster? I love Josie Altidore, I really do. I think he's a really good player. I'm starting to wonder if he should have been on this roster if he wasn't fully fit. And maybe Josh Sargent should have been the backup to Zardes, because at least he was fully fit.
I mean, if we go up against Jamaica and it's Gyasi Zardes starting again, which I think it will be at this point.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, then I think that means, there's no chance that he was going to be ready to start consistently in this tournament, and that's an issue. But I think it's also an issue because we saw the moments from Gyasi Zardes that make everybody frustrated. We saw some okay moments, but we also saw like the miss you mentioned in the second half. It's a great ball in from Paul Arriola. You know what Zardes is trying to do. He has the right idea. He doesn't pull off the execution.
He leans back too far, in my opinion.
He leans back
That's
too far
why the ball goes high.
And insteps it over. But it's not just that he kind of like, he gets his technique wrong a little bit in that moment. It's more so that if the United States is going to play a style of soccer on occasion when they are sitting off and they are kind of trying to defend and then hit on the break, you need a striker who will finish those opportunities because you might only get one. And instead, the United States had, 3 shots on target in the game?
I think that's true.
I'm not sure if any came from Gyasi Zardes.
I mean, I can't remember.
2 from Pulisic. I can't remember the third. I have to believe
it. Third is the goal.
And that's what I'm saying. I think I'm including... Oh, excuse me. Then you're right. 1 from Christian Pulisic, 1 from Weston McKennie, which is the goal, and I think 1 from Tyler Boyd.
Okay, that maybe just the keeper caught. Okay. Speaking of keepers, Zach Steffen. 100% good, except for that one moment with his feet.
He keeps having those moments.
He keeps having that moment. This is towards the end of the first half. There's a back pass to him. He just takes a heavy first touch, and it creates essentially a 50-50 ball, which he then wins and clears.
I have a theory now.
Okay.
I like this idea. we think of a goalkeeper, especially for the U.S. national team, as a leader, right? Like they're the ones who sort of like Tim Howard.
Traditionally, because we've had these older keepers who've stuck around forever, they've become leaders, right?
Okay.
Like Friedel and Howard.
But they're a big part of the team, right? And if you're Zach Steffen and you look around and you see all of your teammates kind of having erratic play and not having their best possible game, but you're doing great.
Yeah.
Then you're kind of head and shoulders above the team. So you've got to have that one moment that brings doubt so that, then you're on the same level.
Oh, so he just did it for everybody else?
Exactly. He just did it so that, now we're all on the same level, which means if you're grading on a curve, everybody moves up a level. So,
well done,
Zach Steffen. Yeah, exactly.
The one thing
everybody got C pluses instead of C's?
Yeah.
All right.
The thing he did do well, he held one. Remember the one shot that he caught?
Mm-hmm.
That gave me a nice calm feeling.
And the tip over at the very
caught
end.
And went down. And the big thing is the save at the end from Bakuna, who I think we've seen before has a really nice shot from outside the box. Again, Bakuna plays in the Premier League. Everybody remember that, right? That's who we're up against here.
Mm-hmm.
He gets away from Michael Bradley when the ball is played to him at the top of the box, creates enough space for him to get this nice bending shot that's going sort of top corner-ish. Steffen is... I rewatched and watched just Steffen throughout this. He's constantly adjusting his position so that by the time the shot comes, he's in a perfect spot to be able to reach up and tip this over.
Yes. I think that there are games... so well done to Zach Steffen for that save. I think that there are...
Saved us here, right? This could have gone to extra time. I would have regretted not adding the extra few minutes to the DVR. Yes. I did add it in the end, by the way.
That's troubling. But I also think that there are games in which if you do not like Michael Bradley, you can still make a case that he had a bad game, but you have to work a little bit harder because there are games when I think he stands out. I think this is a game where, to your point, that's the 84th minute that he kind of loses his mark, gets beaten a little easily, that shot comes off. That literally happens inside the first minute, that he goes to kind of step to a ball and the player just kind of 1-2 touches around him. And that happened kind of regularly in this game.
Does he lose Bakuna on this? I thought he just steps out to him because no one else has got him.
No, I think he drifts away from him because I think he's trying to block off the pass.
Yeah, he's
then has to charge back out because he realizes, oh no, he's going to shoot the ball.
Oh, this is the defensive crouch situation, right? Where he's trying to play the angles instead of thinking about the one player.
Which, if... I'm not even trying to be a Bradley apologist, though I have been and will continue to be labeled one.
Yeah.
I think this was more so.
You do wear that T-shirt that says Bradley apologist on
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time, front and back, just so everybody knows.
It's
and
more
on the
Jeff Bradley's
too.
baseball writer. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know who that is, but yes.
Bob Bradley's brother.
Did not know that. Now I know things. All right. You can tell by the one Mississippi silence, I think, that I did not know that. But I think this was a game in which, we know his vulnerabilities, we know his strengths, but we know his vulnerabilities, Bradley.
Yeah.
And this is a game where I think because of the sort of questionable decisions defensively, he was left exposed a lot of the time, because if you get past the front two, which became a front four on occasion, then suddenly Bradley is tasked with stepping to the ball, but tracking a man, but maybe also tracking another man. And I don't think that's his
too much to cover,
his skill set.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's it's a thing we know. It's not even a worry, right? It's just a thing we know about Michael Bradley and the positives of maybe his passing and some of what he does driving us forward. I still think is worth the trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I would certainly rather see... This sounds harsh again, but I would rather see him there than Will Trapp, I think, from what we've seen recently, at least.
All right.
I do agree with some of the people who've been arguing that maybe this is a game where we saw why Tyler Adams would be nice to have around.
Yes. Imagine an Adams-McKennie central midfield. That's got some legs in it.
That would have been enjoyable.
Yeah. Let's talk Jordan Morris.
Sure.
He came in, and you were really worried about his defensive cover, and I agree with you.
I mean, I was a little worried when Jordan Morris came in because I thought Tyler Boyd had an okay game. I think by the standards of the day, he had a better game than most.
It seemed like the bench didn't like what he was doing in terms of defensive shape,
Yes.
which I kind of feel like he had a better idea than everybody else.
I agree.
But it wasn't maybe the team idea, so that's maybe why you put him off.
But you know what I'm going to lead with, right? Jordan Morris comes on in the 63rd minute.
Yeah.
What's the first thing he does, Daryl?
He self-nutmegs?
He self-nutmegs.
Yeah.
He tries to control the
To be
ball.
fair, it's hard to do.
It is. He tries to control the ball that's played out by, I believe, Walker Zimmerman.
Yeah.
And it goes through Jordan Morris's legs.
Yep.
Curacao get possession back.
But that's not the big problem. It wasn't really what he did with the ball was the problem, right? It's what he did off the ball, I think.
That is the bigger problem, because I think what we've been talking about is that the front two of Pulisic and Zardes became a front four as the United States slowly put numbers forward because they did want to put Curacao under pressure to force that long ball. And I think Greg Berhalter did not want that to happen. I think it was impatience from the American team.
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd routinely, I think, started stepping forward. So Jordan Morris comes in, and I think the idea is Jordan Morris is supposed to stay back, be a bit more defensive, make sure that kind of option out wide is blocked off. But I think he kind of doesn't do that because he does drop deep. But I think also we saw him a lot of times drifting more central, and the ball, like the switch was on
pulled in
every single time.
Yeah, he gets pulled in. He keeps forgetting to look over his shoulder and see what the left back Stati is doing.
Yeah,
Statey as I call him, like Matt Damon in The Departed.
That's what you should.
There were just too many times where you see him be like, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that." There were a couple of times where he would then sprint out to trying to fix the mistake he caused.
I forget the minute, but there's the one where he does exactly what you just described, which is forget that it's his mark until the ball's in the air. Then he realizes, oh, I'm supposed to be there. Then he gets into a theoretical defensive position, gets beat by a just kind of feint one way, goes the other.
He really buys it, right?
Really buys it.
He spends all his money on it.
He does. Then he tries to make up for it by going full speed back to try to block the cross off. The cross is delivered, and he completely takes out the player. I think if the referee had spotted it, I think the referee's watching the ball on the cross in as opposed to the kind of aftermath of the cross. It could have been a card and a free kick, like right near the U.S. goal.
Maybe a red for like endangering an opponent.
I mean, I don't.
High.
I mean, it was aggressive.
Off the floor.
It was an aggressive tackle.
There's no VAR.
Yes. So, but I just think like that sequence right there is like if you're bringing him in to be a more like solid defensive or like wide defensive option. Positioning didn't really solidify that, and then sequences like that certainly didn't solidify things.
Okay, we don't need to talk about every single player, but I'd like to, as a blanket, mention all four defenders.
Sure.
I would argue all four defenders had moments when they struggled to play out of the back, but it was mostly because the midfield and the wingers maybe weren't showing or weren't providing good options, right? So there's a misplaced pass because of that. Every single defender had at least one in the box really good moment. Like a thing where Curacao would advance to the point where they're in our 18 and like Nick Lima stands someone up and like doesn't let them have an angle and eventually blocks a shot. Definitely Aaron Long in the first minute or so, right? Gets a tackle in the box to relieve pressure. Tim Ream has one as well that's really important. I'm sure Walker Zimmerman did as well.
Tim Ream has the slide tackle on the through ball that that looked for all the world like it was going to end up in a great shooting chance.
Best pass of the game, right?
Yep.
Absolutely the best pass of the game. It was Rose Lavelle worthy. That's how good it was.
It sure was.
So every defender kind of stood up to the dangerous moment and made sure they didn't let Curacao have a good like eye on goal. Right?
I would say if you're looking at like best performers in this game, I don't think anybody had a particularly good game, but I do think your back four were more or less the best players, and I'd add Christian Pulisic into there. I would say the reason why they might stand out in a bad way, the defenders, is because the distribution wasn't as tight as I think we would have liked. But I also think, and I agree with some people who are making this point on Twitter, that I don't think there was a lot of service from the midfield in terms of showing when, like Walker Zimmerman especially, I think there was a couple times when he was looking for Weston McKennie to drop in a little bit faster or any other player to drop in a little bit faster, and it wasn't as automatic as kind of practiced as we would have expected. And so it ends up that he either has to try to force a ball in once the player has shown but now has a mark, or he ends up having to kick it long because nothing else is on.
Okay, to tie this all together, I've got a slight theory that the sort of weird passive defensive shape we had, the attitude bled over into when we had the ball in the second half, and we just got a bit more passive when we had possession instead of being, all right, we're on it, we're moving it fast, we're moving, I'm in, I'm out, like I'm going here, you're going there. I think that whole thing slowed down. I think it might just be a tempo, blood pressure, how fast your blood is flowing, how fast your adrenaline's running, mindset type thing that bled over. I'm not sure if sports scientists would agree with me on that, but it feels right to me.
I mean, I think if
it has truthiness, as Colbert would say.
There we are. I think if you've been told we're up 1-0, don't give them easy opportunities, sit back, make them come at you. If there's a situation like there was when Arreola wins the ball and ends up playing in Zardes, take that chance. But otherwise, take your time and be smart. It makes it harder because if you've practiced this, like everybody moving and everybody kind of running off the ball and there's a lot of fluidity, if you're now kind of stopping that in order to keep possession, it changes everything you're doing.
You got anything else to say about this game?
No, other than I genuinely leave this game very conflicted because we've talked about it, Gold Cup, the group stage, even the initial knockout round, it's always kind of a mixed bag. It's tough to really know. I would have loved to have seen a slightly more comprehensive performance. It would have made me feel, especially coming after the Panama game, would have made me feel more like, Daryl's right. Patterns of play, rotations, it's all coming together.
But I am right. That was still there. And my argument on after the Panama review wasn't that it's all working great right now.
No, it was. You said everything's perfect, everything's great. You said 100%, this is how it should be always.
I sort of explained what it is that we're trying to do and that it's worth investing in long term and not expecting it to be perfect right now. Even though everyone's mad at US soccer for 2018 and all that sort of stuff, be patient, and eventually maybe we get the rewards of having a really nice possession-based team. Right? That was my argument. I still stand by that argument. But now I have a little asterisk next to it. But we should worry about how we defend.
Yes. Yeah. We should worry about how we defend is a slightly bigger asterisk than I would feel comfortable with after the fourth game of the tournament.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I guess the only thing to say is that we play Jamaica on Wednesday.
We do.
Wednesday night against Jamaica.
Yeah.
To me, this is a really big game because this is a team that, one, is pretty good. Two, beat us recently in a friendly. So this would be, if you're Greg Berhalter and you've made the argument that it's okay if we lose the friendlies because we learn things from them, you then have to win the competitive game, right?
He kind of set the blueprint right here. He kind of told us what's to come. He was asked about this at the very end, I think, about like this is
the press conference.
Yeah, you all lost. This is a Jamaica team that you all lost against in the friendly leading into this tournament. After this result, how do you like kind of respond to that? What went wrong? And basically, he said it's about the speed of movement. That we did not have nearly enough movement, and we didn't have the mentality to go at them and get behind them, and that's what caused us problems
in this game or the Jamaica game.
In the Jamaica game,
both.
So I think against in the Jamaica game specifically.
Yeah.
So if that's his answer, then the implication would be that there's going to be a lot more movement, and they're going to be trying to get in behind Jamaica early and often and regularly.
Yeah, and then the big thing will be the physical test as well. Because if you remember, Jamaica essentially bullied us. Right? They picked on Georgi Mihailovic and everybody else and knocked us over a lot. So this is going to be a huge, huge test for the US men's national team. I'm honestly quite excited to watch it because I think it is the first proper test that Berhalter will have, right? And again, like, it's not Germany or the Netherlands. We're not testing ourselves against the world's very, very best, but we're testing ourselves against one of the better CONCACAF nations.
There we are.
Yeah, okay. So that will be Wednesday. We'll have a preview of that probably on Tuesday. I think there's another game on Tuesday as well.
I believe there is.
It's the US women's national team.
Versus some whiny country who won't stop complaining about stuff.
I'm not even going to respond to that.
All right.
It's US versus England.
How dare you look at hotels? Phil Neville is outraged. He could barely button his waistcoat. He was so upset.
Did you say his monocle fell out?
Yes.
That's racist.
It's an old Simpsons joke of like a man in a monocle. I think it's when they have a racing horse that has like a mohawk.
Yeah.
And his monocle falls out into his glass of champagne and breaks. And he says, "That's my third monocle this week. I simply must stop being so horrified." That's Phil Neville to me right now.
So that World Cup semi-final is on Tuesday.
Yes.
We'll have a preview of that on Monday. And I think I'll just backwards describe the first half of the week for Total Soccer Show.
Now, do you think Phil Neville's going to have the top hat and the spats? Or like, what's he going to do to be properly formal for this game so as not to enrage the Queen?
I'm not going to bite on any of this. How about that?
All right, that's fine.
Yeah. Taylor Rockwell. All right. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
God save Kate Middleton.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.
And maybe good night.